Some people, when praised for their virtue, are delighted, and attribute this pleasurable feeling of self-esteem to grace. Others, when reproved for their sins, are pained, and they mistake this beneficial pain for the action of sin. Those who, because of the rigor of their own ascetic practice, despise the less zealous, think that they are made righteous by physical works. But we are even more foolish if we rely on theoretical knowledge and disparage the ignorant. Even though knowledge is true, it is still not firmly established if unaccompanied by works. For everything is established by being put into practice. Often our knowledge becomes darkened because we fail to put things into practice. For when we have totally neglected to practice something, our memory of it will gradually disappear. For this reason, Scripture urges us to acquire the knowledge of God, so that through our works we may serve Him rightly. When we fulfill the commandments in our outward actions, we receive from the Lord what is appropriate. But any real benefit we gain depends on our inward intention. If we want to do something but cannot, then before God, who knows our hearts, it is as if we have done it. This is true whether the intended action is good or bad. The intellect does many good and bad things without the body, whereas the body can do neither good nor evil without the intellect. This is because the law of freedom applies to what happens before we act. Some, without fulfilling the commandments, think that they possess the true faith. Others fulfill the commandments and then expect the kingdom as a reward due to them. Both are mistaken. A master is under no obligation to reward his slaves. On the other hand, those who do not serve him well are not given their freedom. If Christ died on our account in accordance with the Scriptures, Romans chapter 8 verse 8, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 3, and we do not live for ourselves, but for him who died and rose on our account, 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 15, it is clear that we are debtors to Christ and serve him till our death. How then can we regard sonship as something which is our due? Christ is master by virtue of his own essence, and master by virtue of his incarnate life. For he creates man from nothing, and through his own blood redeems him when dead in sin, and to those who believe in him he has given his grace. When Scripture says he will reward every man according to his works, Matthew chapter 16 verse 27, do not imagine that works in themselves merit either hell or the kingdom. On the contrary, Christ rewards each man according to whether his works are done with faith or without faith in himself, and he is not a dealer bound by contract, but God, our Creator and Redeemer. We who have received baptism offer good works, not by way of repayment, but to preserve the purity given to us. Every good work which we perform through our own natural powers causes us to refrain from the corresponding sin, but without grace it cannot contribute to our sanctification. The self-controlled refrain from gluttony, those who have renounced possessions from greed, the tranquil from loquacity, the pure from self-indulgence, the modest from unchastity, the self-dependent from avarice, the gentle from agitation, the humble from self-esteem, the obedient from quarreling, the self-critical from hypocrisy. Similarly, those who pray are protected from despair, the poor from having many possessions, confessors of the faith from its denial, martyrs from idolatry, Do you see how every virtue that is performed, even to the point of death, is nothing other than refraining from sin? Now, to refrain from sin is a work within our own natural powers, but not something that buys us the kingdom. While man can scarcely keep what belongs to him by nature, Christ gives the grace of sonship through the cross. Certain commandments are specific, and others are comprehensive. Thus, Christ enjoins us specifically to share with him who has none. Luke chapter 3, verse 11. And he gives us a comprehensive command to forsake all that we have. Luke chapter 14, verse 33. There is an energy of grace not understood by beginners, and there is also an energy of evil which resembles the truth. It is advisable not to scrutinize these energies too closely because one may be led astray, and not to condemn them out of hand because they may contain some truth, but we should lay everything before God in hope, for he knows what is of value in both of them. He who wants to cross the spiritual sea is long-suffering, humble, vigilant, and self-controlled. If he impetuously embarks on it without these four virtues, he agitates his heart, but cannot cross.